There are two narratives, the one in Ahsoka and the one about Ahsoka. So the narrative in Ahsoka was, I think, disappointing. It didn't go where I think it needed to or where I wanted it to, but for what the story was the story good? I think it does meet the standard of what a good story is. Did the characters make sense? For the most part. Was the plotting and pacing appropriate? For the most part, it was. Was the style consistent with the other episodes? Yes. And the various aspects were strong. Special effects, performances, costume design. You go through the list, it meets the standard of what a good episode is. However, there were huge chunks of it I had many issues with, and I did not like it. I didn't like where they were going, but it wasn't done badly. It was just a very mixed episode, especially tonally. There is a lot of comedy. Now, that's okay in Star Wars, of course, but the comedy I think went really excessive. We just didn't get a lot of Thrawn, but the Thrawn we did get I thought was very excellent, especially the dialogue. The dialogue was very sharp, very clever with him, but the consensus for a lot of fans are this was a huge drop off in quality from the last episode. And I gotta say, catching up with Wheel of Time and watching that show, that narrative makes sense for that show, but not this show, because with Wheel of Time, yes, that is true. The latest episode was a huge drop off. It was a massive drop off in quality, and it's very similar structures in that it seemed that Ahsoka was just getting at best average, but then it started getting really, really good. Same thing with Wheel of Time. It just seemed like the best it was ever going to do is be average, but then it started getting good. Now it's back to being really, really bad. But Ahsoka, I think, is avoiding that. However, I don't think I could give this a number score because even though more positive than negative, many things were still pretty bad. Like the editing was very choppy. Some of the plot lines were just making huge leaps, and somewhat happened on the villain side. I'm still having question mark. So I'm going to have to wait for the final episode because it just felt we're really just jumping the narrative for no reason. And yes, there were strong elements. I did like the cameos with Leia, C-3PO, and things like that. And another bonus cameo, which I really appreciated, feel like that was exploitive. And I think actually Filoni, and this is the problem I had with the early episode, it's okay to pay homage, but he sometimes abused it. And I think he's doing the same thing. It's a weak plot with some very bad moments, and the cameos are there to like glide you through those weak moments. And I want to stay consistent and say you can only do that to some extent. So the cameos didn't ruin things, but they didn't improve things too much either. So more positive than negative with Ahsoka, but I think this could have been a great episode. Instead, it's good, and I say vaguely it's within the 7 to 8 category, in my opinion.